Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's reports for the 3rd of July, right before the 4th here. And as we've been into this holiday week here, continued slow push up, that climbing the wall of fears we talked about. Still magenta, that rising perfectly above yellow, that, and short interest dropping off dramatically from the other day. And that's just a result of a pretty strong move. But what's interesting is the change here in DOC. We potentially get to DOC spread, which is that cyan moving back above red, and that, if it crosses green, would be quite the threshold switch over. The only advantage is that short-term buyers have been reset in this, and of course you have new fund money coming in that's going to have to go somewhere. Hard pressed to find where they're going to put it other than the market, simply because while rates are relatively reasonable, everyone's got this inflationary fear that they think is just around the corner, even though it hasn't materialized. NASDAQ turning around and moving back above, so being congruent with that, but also DOC looking almost identical and a much weaker shakeout from a NASDAQ standpoint. So that's a big difference. Relative to the readings, even if you see price that's doing the same thing, you can see that the underlying um, reality within the two different markets not exactly the same. And when you don't have congruity between the two markets, we tend to get what I call exacerbated moves between different ranges until it can even out. And while they're pretty consistent from a MBI reading standpoint, that shift of DOC being the same really gives us an indication that while the NASDAQ had moved a little bit more, it's having to correct and fill back in between. So it still looks positive overall, but it's not going to take much to disrupt the apple cart, so to speak. You had Powell making his stupid comments the other day about, he would have cut rates. Uh, Shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's really becomes a problem, and now you throw in the big beautiful bill not going anywhere yet, and then you're going to be stuck with a massive tax increase here if it doesn't pass. So that's an interesting one, but it is still just a lot of pork and spending, and so the market's excited about that because if it does pass, uh, you got business as usual where they're just going to be throwing tons of money just in a different direction than Biden was throwing it. It's still insane and ridiculous deficits. I don't object to the idea that you can grow out of deficit, but you've got to also cut back your spending uh, within a point that's reasonable, and this doesn't do that. So yeah, there are plenty of reasonable objections. I don't know that Musk's objections are any more relevant than the others simply because he's tied to the subsidies that come with them. Okay, fine, do an equal number of cuts for oil subsidies. Yeah, that works too. You start to live within your means. The problem with that is the draw. They're at the bottom of the barrel on their reserves, and so that crude draw driving price, and that's really the problem. Until that is able to change, it's an ugly one. And the only real way to do that would be to lift sanctions off the people that produce it and allow them to sell, and that's politically not popular at this particular stage. So, yeah, no. Um, and of course the euro drive all of that, even despite the fact that the rates and everything in the euro growth doesn't even match close to what the U.S. is doing. The expectation is the U.S. is going to go into a deep recession, and there will be massive inflation that will force devaluation. It's a pipe dream, and eventually it'll play out. Of course, this is what Powell is saying, and they believe him, and that's where money, listens to what the Fed does have to say, because fighting the Fed is never a good idea. From a gold standpoint, that was also a bonus too, because uncertainty economically is always a bonus from a safety standpoint. So going into gold in that, likewise Bitcoin. And of course, the Bitcoin one is also about this idea that all these different companies now want to have some type of reserve in Bitcoin just to have an exposure, just in case it goes up. And of course you've got, used to be MicroStrategy, but Strategy, having acquired so much and pretty much gone all in. So you got some big players that have gone all in, particularly with the ETFs and everything. They have to buy coin to hold on to it to justify their ETF exposure situation. So, it's created its own market to sustain itself, even if it doesn't really do anything. It's still an asset class now because once you converted that into the ETFs and the future, actually, I talked about this years ago. Once they put Bitcoin on the futures, uh, that changed everything, and we saw it because at that particular point we were right around 16,000, and it was like, okay, this is an opportunity for them to drive the price down because now you have a mechanism to actually short it, and that's exactly what happened. And then we saw the turnaround for it from the buy standpoint, and even along the different routes when we got to the 50,000 and the pullbacks, and then the spike up to 70. I mean, these were all pretty much exactly as we would expect from our chart readings. So none of that was a surprise. What we had here was the nice MBI white started. We had a little bit of softness, but as soon as the magenta took over, boom, we were on our way. And we ended up with the MBI white spike at this peak, but not any extremes on the extreme histogram. So no red indications that it's overdone or anything that requires a move. So further delayed, and we're still magenta and cyan well above the 33 level. Can't complain. It's all good stuff from there. This is what it looked like from a micro moment, 5 minute, all the way up, and then it was gliding across all the way above, only a brief dip below the 76 one time. Um, yeah, it's all clean action here in the European session right before the holiday here. Modest, so we're kind of flat overall. So we'll see how it plays out, but everyone have a great holiday, and we'll be right back at it to start next week. Have a good one. Trade well.